Let's get one thing straight from the beginning. In the world of male-female dynamics, silence is not weakness, it's power, not violence, not shouting, not chasing, not over-explaining, silence. And here's the controversial truth most men don't want to hear. The less you speak, the more she feels. Not because women are fragile, not because they're emotional wrecks, but because female psychology responds to emotional contrast, and silence creates that tension. It's the echo of absence that makes your presence scream. Still think texting her nonstop is the move? Still think explaining yourself is manly? Let me hit you with a hard fact. When a man goes quiet, a woman starts to wonder, and when she wonders, she feels. Curiosity becomes obsession. Obsession becomes emotional attachment. And before someone tries to twist this, no, silence isn't about manipulation. It's about emotional space. Something too many men have forgotten how to use. We live in a time where men are constantly taught to express, to overshare, to stay in her face, to communicate more. But the truth? A man's silence at the right time is more powerful than 1,000 words. Because unlike men, who often need direct language, women feel through gaps in energy, in attention, in effort. You pull back, and if there's any value attached to you at all, she feels it deeper than she'll ever admit. Here's what most men fail to realize. Attention is a currency, and silence is a price increase. You're not punishing her. You're reminding her of your value. You're not ignoring her. You're inviting reflection. And sometimes, what you don't say is exactly what she needs to hear. So in this video, I'm breaking down exactly why your silence speaks louder than your words. From female psychology to emotional impact, we're going to break the myths and give you the real game. Let's dive into the 10 reasons why your silence hits harder than anything else. 1. Women feel more in the silence than in your words. Here's the truth. You can talk to a woman for hours and not move her emotionally, but a few days of silence, that will live in her head rent-free. Most men make the mistake of thinking that explaining their feelings, texting more, or calling constantly will make her feel closer. But here's what female psychology tells us. It's not what you say. It's what she feels when you stop saying anything at all. When a man goes silent, not out of manipulation, but out of self-respect or emotional clarity, it shifts the dynamic completely. Why? Because suddenly there's space. And women feel in that space. They start to question things. They start to imagine. They wonder why you've stopped. They revisit past moments looking for answers. And that's when the emotional connection deepens. Silence triggers something powerful, emotional contrast. In a world where most men are desperate for attention and communication, a man who pulls back stands out. He becomes mysterious. He becomes unpredictable. He becomes interesting again. Think about it like this. If you eat your favorite food every single day, you stop craving it. But if it disappears from the table for a few days, you start to miss it. You start to crave it again. That's exactly how emotional absence works. It resets her emotional response to you. Let's make it real. A guy breaks up with his girl. He doesn't argue. He doesn't blow up her phone. He simply goes silent. 3 days later, she's posting quotes about healing and missing the past. By the end of the week, she's sending him a random message. Hey, I saw something that reminded me of you. Why? Because the silence wasn't just silence, it was energy. It was weight. It's not about being cold or heartless, it's about letting your absence be felt. Because once she starts feeling your silence more than she ever felt your words, you've already won the emotional game. 2. Silence makes her question her power over you. Let's be brutally honest. Every woman tests your emotional position, whether she admits it or not. She wants to know. Do you orbit her or do you stand in your own gravity? And nothing shakes her more than when she realizes she doesn't have the pull she thought she did. Most men don't understand this. They react instantly. They explain themselves. They chase. But when you go silent, especially after a moment of tension or disrespect, it forces her to sit in her own energy without your attention to soothe it. That silence, it sends a strong message. You don't control how I feel. I do. And here's where it gets interesting. When you don't react, she starts to question her own influence over you. She asks herself, did I go too far? Why isn't he chasing? Has he moved on? Did I lose my grip? That questioning is powerful because once doubt creeps in, she starts valuing what she thought was guaranteed. Remember this: power isn't in your words, it's in what you choose not to respond to. And silence, when used with intention, shows emotional strength, self control, and boundaries. You're telling her, without saying a word, you don't get to treat me anyhow and still have access to me. Here's how it plays out. Let's say she sends a disrespectful message, maybe mocking your ambition or throwing a passive aggressive jab. Most guys would argue, defend, or try to explain their side. But you go silent. You disappear. No reaction, no reply, nothing. What happens next? She spirals. She reads that message back again and again. She starts thinking, did I mess up? And just like that, she starts chasing the power back. Silence turns the mirror back on her. This is how women feel consequences. Not through yelling, not through begging, not through games, but through calm, intentional distance. Because when she starts to question her power over you, she starts respecting you more. And once respect enters the chat, everything changes. 3, talking too much makes you predictable. Let's keep it real. Most men talk themselves out of respect. Not because they're soft, not because they're wrong, but because they overexpress, overshare, and overexplain until there's nothing left to figure out. And here's the problem with that: predictability kills attraction. A man who always says what he's thinking, always explains his next move, always responds immediately, he becomes boring, flat, emotionally see through. There's no tension, no curiosity, no edge. Now let's talk about women for a second. Female psychology thrives on emotional stimulation, not logical clarity. She doesn't fall in love because everything you say makes perfect sense. She falls in love because you feel unpredictable, a little uncertain, a little mysterious. And that's what silence gives you. It makes her guess, it makes her wonder, it makes her feel something. But when you're always talking, always explaining, always filling in the silence, she already knows what's coming. You're too easy to read, too easy to reach, too easy to get a reaction from. And once she knows exactly how you'll respond in every situation, she stops feeling anything about it. Think about it. How many times have you texted paragraphs, poured out your thoughts, explained your emotions, only for her to go cold? Not because she doesn't care, but because you gave her the full story too soon. There was no chase, no mystery, no emotional rise and fall. Here's the harsh truth: when a man is too available emotionally, he loses the power of emotional contrast. Silence, on the other hand, breaks that rhythm. It resets the energy. It makes her feel like something shifted, and that shift creates curiosity. And when she's curious, she's emotionally engaged. And when she's emotionally engaged, you're no longer just predictable. You're present in her mind again. So stop thinking that saying more will save the connection. Sometimes the smartest move you can make is to say nothing and let her feel the silence. 4, she's addicted to the emotional roller coaster. Let's stop pretending. Most modern women are not addicted to peace. They're addicted to emotional stimulation. The ups, the downs, the confusion, the silence, the comeback. It's a feeling, and it's powerful. And you as a man need to stop acting like calm logic is enough to hold her interest. Here's the truth: if she always knows where she stands with you, she's already halfway out the door. The emotional roller coaster is real, and silence is a big part of that ride. One moment you're showing affection, the next, you're quiet. She doesn't know what shifted. She starts feeling uneasy. She replays conversations. That emotional spike, that's the hit. It's not toxic, it's psychological. Female brains are wired to respond to emotional changes, and silence is one of the strongest emotional triggers. But here's where men need to wake up. Most of you try too hard to keep the peace and be the good guy. You're scared of tension, scared of losing her, so you keep talking, keep pleasing, keep smoothing everything over, and slowly you become invisible. That's not leadership. That's fear. And women don't follow fear, like they follow strength. A man who knows when to pull back, when to go quiet, when to let her feel the silence. That man has control, not over her, but over himself. And that's what shakes her. That's what keeps her engaged. You keep trying to be her safe space, and she keeps chasing the guy who gives her emotional highs and lows. Why? Because he triggers feeling while you're busy chasing approval. Let that sink in. A woman's emotions aren't stable by default. They flow, they move, they swing. And if you don't understand how to create emotional contrast, including silence, you'll never have her full attention. So here's the advice: stop being predictable. Stop trying to win her over with words. Start learning the value of emotional pacing. Give her space to feel you through your absence. Because that roller coaster she claims to hate, she's secretly addicted to it. And until you master that emotional rhythm, you'll keep getting replaced by the man who already has. 5. Silence shows strength, not weakness. Here's one of the biggest lies men have been sold. If you care, you should say something. Wrong. Sometimes the strongest move a man can make is to say nothing at all. Let's be clear, like silence is not weakness. It's restraint, it's control, it's discipline. But society has trained you to think that if you're quiet, you're scared. If you don't reply, you're losing. When in reality, your silence could be the most powerful message she's ever received. Why? Because most people, especially women, expect you to react. She expects you to defend yourself. She expects you to explain, apologize, or plead. And when you don't, you break the pattern. And that break in the pattern is where she starts feeling confusion, curiosity, doubt, emotion. That's what strength looks like: choosing to hold your ground when you could easily fold. Now, look, silence isn't about avoiding problems or being emotionally closed off. It's about choosing when and if your words are necessary. Most of the time, they're not. She pulls away, you go silent. She says something disrespectful, you withdraw your energy. She starts playing games, you stop playing altogether. That doesn't make you weak. That makes you unshakable. Real strength is calm. Real power is quiet. Anyone can argue. Anyone can text paragraphs. Anyone can beg to be understood. But it takes a man with real inner strength to remain silent. Not out of fear, but out of value. Because you're not going to lower yourself just to make a point. She'll feel that. She might not admit it, but she'll feel it. Because silence from a strong man hits different. It's not the silence of someone who's lost. It's the silence of someone who won't compete for attention. So next time you feel the urge to over-explain, to chase, to respond immediately, stop. Ask yourself, am I reacting out of emotion or responding from strength? Because when you move from strength, your silence becomes louder than any words you could say. 6. Chasing kills desire. Silence restores. Let's just say it flat out. When you chase, you kill the very attraction you're trying to protect. You can't desire something that's always in your face, and she can't miss a man who never gives her a chance to. That's why silence matters. It brings back what chasing destroys: mystery, space, desire. Most guys get it twisted. They think if she's pulling away, they should do more. Text more, call more, apologize, prove themselves. But the more you chase, the faster she runs. Not because she's evil, not because she's playing you, but because female desire dies when there's no tension. Chasing screams insecurity. Chasing tells her, you're above me, I need you to validate me. And no woman respects that energy for long. Now contrast that with silence. Silence says, I'm not going to force anything. If you want to move, move. I'm good either way. That level of self-control, that composure, that's what restores her respect. It makes her pause. It makes her reevaluate. It brings you back into focus. Because here's what women won't say out loud. They want to feel your absence. They want to wonder where you went. They want to feel like they might lose you. That's what keeps their desire alive. So if she starts to detach, don't panic. Don't chase. Don't feed the cycle. Just go silent. Pull back. Let the space do the talking. Most of the time, it's not that she stopped liking you. It's that you gave her too much, too easily, too fast. And when that happens, nature takes over. She stops valuing what's always there. Silence reverses that. It reminds her of the man who had standards. It reminds her you're not desperate. It reminds her you're not afraid to walk away. And that, right there, is what reignites the spark. So stop thinking more effort equals more attraction. In reality, less is more when it's delivered with confidence and self respect. 7. Silence reveals her true interest level. Here's a game changer most men overlook. If you want to know how much she actually cares, go quiet. No double texts, no just checking in, no fake excuses to start a conversation, just silence. Because when a woman is truly interested in you, your silence won't go unnoticed. It'll create a reaction. She'll check in, she'll test the waters, she'll try to reconnect. Why? Because she values the connection. But when she doesn't care, silence won't bother her. She'll let the conversation die. She'll move on like nothing happened. And that's your answer right there. Too many men are terrified of this. They'd rather keep chasing than face the truth. But real power comes from letting silence show you who she really is. It's not who you hope she is. Here's the real talk. If she only shows up when you're putting in all the effort, that's not mutual interest. That's convenience. If she goes days without noticing you've gone quiet, she was never emotionally invested to begin with. And that's okay, because silence doesn't just reveal her, it frees you. It saves you from wasting time, energy, and focus on someone who was never all in. But most men don't want to face that. They'd rather stay stuck in denial, texting first, calling first, always initiating, just to keep the illusion alive. And in doing so, they lose their frame. They lose their value. They lose the upper hand. Silence strips away the performance. There are no more games, no more assumptions, no more guessing. It's raw, it's honest, it's revealing. You'll know where you stand, not by what she says, but by what she does when you say nothing. That's real clarity. That's real control. So next time you feel confused about where things are going, don't send another message. Don't ask for closure. Just go silent and watch what unfolds. Because silence doesn't lie. And the way she responds to your absence, that's the truth you've been avoiding. 8. Not every action needs an explanation. Here's the hard truth. If you feel the need to explain everything you do, you're already losing frame. One of the most powerful things a man can do is move without justification. No warnings, no breakdowns, no emotional disclaimers. Just action, clean, quiet, and clear. But what do most guys do? They overtalk. They try to be understood. They want to make sure she knows why they're pulling back, why they're upset, why they're distancing. Wrong move, because the moment you explain your silence, you kill the effect of it. Silence only works when it's felt, not when it's announced. And here's where men need to wake up. You don't owe her an explanation for everything, especially not your boundaries. If something feels off, pull back. If you feel disrespected, go quiet. If she's playing games, stop participating. You don't need a PowerPoint presentation to justify protecting your peace. Women won't always say it, but they respect men who don't explain themselves constantly. Because those men operate from inner confidence, not insecurity. They're not worried about being misunderstood. They're focused on being respected. And trust me, respect comes before love. You can't build attraction with a woman who doesn't respect how you move. Now look, this doesn't mean you should be cold, rude, or emotionally unavailable. It means you know when to stop talking and start standing firm. You don't have to tell her, hey, I'm going silent now because you disrespected me. Nah, you just do it. Let her connect the dots. Because when you start explaining every little shift in your energy, your actions lose their weight. She stops feeling you and starts analyzing you. And once she's analyzing, she's no longer emotionally engaged. So remember this. Real power doesn't explain itself. It just moves. When your silence comes from a place of certainty, it doesn't need a caption. She'll feel it. She'll notice it. And she'll respond to it, whether she admits it or not. Stop over-explaining. Start acting with intention, because a man who doesn't justify everything forces others to take him seriously. 9. She'll fill in the gaps with emotion. Here's what most men never realize. When you go silent, she doesn't just sit there. Her mind starts racing. And that space you leave, she fills it with emotion. This is female psychology 101. When something isn't explained, it's felt. And the silence? It becomes a canvas for her imagination. Every moment you're not responding, not reacting, not explaining, she's thinking, feeling, and wondering. Is he mad? Is he over me? Did I lose him? Did I mess up? Why hasn't he said anything? And in that loop of thoughts, the emotional connection builds. Now, let's be clear, you're not playing games, you're not ghosting, you're not being passive aggressive, you're just not over communicating. You're giving her space to feel instead of giving her constant clarity. Because when you constantly explain and reassure, she never has to feel the impact of her actions. But when you go quiet, even just for a little, she has no choice but to sit with it. And that's when the emotional work happens. It's not about punishing her, it's about letting the silence speak. That silence says, I'm not here to convince you of my worth. I'm not begging for attention. I move on self respect, not fear. And that creates a kind of tension most women aren't used to. A man who doesn't need her validation. That silence lingers in her head. It replays, it grows. She starts feeling things she didn't expect. Missing you when she swore she was over it. Thinking about the good moments, regretting the shift in energy. All because you didn't fill in the silence for her. You let her do it herself. That's the emotional gap, and it's powerful. So don't rush to explain. Don't jump to react. Let the silence do the work. Because when there's space, there's tension. And when there's tension, there's feeling. And when there's feeling, you're back on her mind. Not through force, not through words, but through the quiet power of being a man who doesn't overgive access to himself. 10. If you're always available, you're replaceable. Here's a rule every man needs to tattoo on his mindset. The more available you are, the less valuable you seem. It sounds harsh, but it's the truth. Availability breeds comfort, and too much comfort kills desire. If she knows you'll always text back, if she knows you'll always pick up the phone, if she knows she can come and go as she pleases and you'll still be there, you've already lowered your status in her mind. And the worst part? You trained her to see you that way. Here's what you need to understand. Women don't fall for men who are always available. They fall for men who are wanted by others, in demand, focused, and hard to reach. That doesn't mean being cold or playing games. It means you've got a life that doesn't revolve around her. It means you're not waiting by the phone. It means you're not desperate to be seen. Because when a man is always accessible, he starts to feel replaceable. Why? Because there's no sense of urgency, no scarcity, no mystery. She knows you're not going anywhere. And once she knows that, she starts to test you. Or worse, ignore you. Now compare that to a man who is occasionally silent. Not out of spite, but out of purpose. He's working, he's building, he's evolving. And in that silence, she feels the absence. She starts to wonder, where is he? Why hasn't he hit me up? What's he doing? That's where emotional weight builds because suddenly, you're not so predictable. Suddenly, if she's reminded you have options. Suddenly, she's reminded you don't need her, you choose her. And that shift, that's what flips the entire dynamic. So ask yourself, are you always available? Do you make it easy for her to take you for granted? If the answer is yes, then understand, you've become replaceable in her mind. Not because you're not valuable, but because you've made your presence too cheap. Pull back, protect your energy, move with purpose, and let her earn your attention again. Because once you do, you go from replaceable to unforgettable. Here's the truth no one wants to say out loud. The moment she realizes she doesn't control your silence is the moment she starts respecting your presence. And that's why most men lose the game. They talk too much, care too loud, and never give her the space to actually feel them. But the ones who master silence, they don't chase, they attract. Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let me know if you felt this, if you've lived this. I'm reading everything and I'll reply. Let's build something real out here. We're not just talking, we're waking men up.